And here, Wooden Nichols has provided some nice photographs for some construction. Quite a handful, and I thought we would give them a nice thorough examination. And if you remember in a past video I made, probably a couple years ago now, I talked about how if we were to possibly inherit an entire civilization's remains, most obviously their buildings, infrastructure such as canals, roads, monuments. But in that particular video I discussed the possibility of us inheriting the camera. Of course, all of this being old tech, nothing new under the sun. And if we inherited the camera, then naturally we would inherit some old photographs from the old world taken by the old civilization. And for me, this is absolutely on the table. Why wouldn't we? I believe the clothing and art, tech, everything was inherited. And there would be photographs, and many of those photographs would be photos of the construction of their buildings. And with such a collection of photos, one could easily rewrite a narrative over and over again. And I'm not sure that is what we're going to see in these photos. I think we also see evidence of photoshopping. Now, in the old days, they didn't call it photoshopping, they called it dodging and burning. Something you would do in a dark room while processing a photograph. And again, not sure if that will be the case with these photos, but I thought we'd just have a look with fresh eyes. Welcome. So here we see a photograph of the Singer building. So here a closer look at the Singer building. A true beauty we've discussed in the past. And this could be put into the category of buildings that were built in 1 year. One. From 1897 to 1898. And the tower, we're told, took another 2 years. 1906 to 1908. The camera is well on its way by this time. There should be no problem with photographic evidence. And the Singer building was demolished in 1968. 60 years of usage to make way for the One Liberty Plaza, a fine cube. This was done despite being regarded as a city icon. At the time, it was the tallest building to ever be demolished. So that makes a lot of sense. Here she is, under construction, and really looking old in this photograph. If you took away these features, it would appear as if we're looking at an old and seasoned building. I believe that there's curtains hanging inside. And why, if you had built up 5 or 6 stories, is there still this scaffolding down here? This should have been complete long ago. This building looks like everything on both sides of it, which also looks old and massive. Mind you, the beginning of the 1900s, everything is completely built out, and we don't see very many people. We do see some. This looks like a couple, man and woman, on the go. Here a man crossing the street, just giving us an idea of how quick the exposure of this particular photograph was. Pretty good, maybe half a second. And again, everything looking old, and then we have this. Again, very strange. Why would you even continue building this tower when this part is supposedly not finished? And really, I think it is finished. This seems to have a different kind of hue, as if it's a smoky day, but I don't think we're dealing with smoke, because everything else is pretty much in focus, good visibility in the background here, yet this looks smoky compared to the sharp and fine detail that we get in what appears to be a half a second exposure. So everything seeming legit on the bottom, but the top looking very suspicious. This looking like an older photograph. up here. Again, that smoky feel, as if it's a very old photo. And I don't think that's the case. I think it's been added in. Just not making any sense to not complete this part, to start working on this facade, and to continue building up. You would complete one floor. And what is supporting any of this? Really looking fishy. The narrative tells us they began construction of the tower after the first portion was complete. But that's not even what we see here. And now I want to look at this little platform up here. Again, why would you even continue upward until you finish this part of the building? And let's just see what they're doing in this part of the building. So we have this really sketchy platform here. You couldn't pay me to walk on this platform. What are we to imagine that they just stuck this wood into the concrete? Just bored some holes into the concrete? And even if they did, I still wouldn't walk out on this platform, even if that was the case. But I don't think that is the case. This is too stupid of a walkway, which leads me to believe that this has been photoshopped in here. Again, it's fastened to the concrete, the wood, and it gets better. At least, if we were to believe that they fastened these into the concrete facade, we might think that was normal. But these sections are running right through the window. Right through the window. Here, this one, through the window. And if we think it's weird to look at cities with no people, what of construction sites with no people? It's not like you're just shuffling around on a construction site. Oftentimes, someone will sit in one place for up to an hour. And what a mess this is, and not a single person to be seen. And if we do see a person, never working, just posing, just show me one hammer in mid-swing. One block being hoisted up 15 stories. We don't see any of that. Here again, I see some kind of a pulley system, and it looks so smoky. Why isn't it sharp and clear like all the rest of this detail? And again, this part of the building is under construction. Really? You're not going to finish this bottom corner of the building before you start building this tower, which is sitting on this structure? Does this make any sense? Just a few anomalies here. And how about here? A construction photo, and it looks like they were in a hurry to put the sign up. Perhaps the sign maker was not going to be available in 6 months. Very strange, and I would be very upset if I had paid for this sign because it looks old already. And I'd also be very upset with my windows. Many of them appear to be busted up and just not having that nice new window feel. And again, somebody's behind schedule. This section should have been completed long ago, long before the sign was put up. And do we have any people here? Anyone? Perhaps one man can be seen down here, and much neglect down here, seeming like they just put off this whole section. And another thing I noticed was how hasty they were to put up this antenna. Now this antenna is probably 4 stories in comparison to these floors here. 4 stories, and this would have been a pretty monumental occasion. Much picture snapping should have taken place on this day. The erecting of the 4-story antenna before the building is even complete. And if we look, this antenna is there in every picture that we see this tower. Here it is again in 1907, and again the sign is up, but not the one over here. And I think that they're just playing games here. In some cases, we may be seeing phases of construction in the form of facading, such as seen here. This looks like the original brick, clearly, old brick, and at best, they may be putting this facading up here over the face of the brick. But even that I'm not sure about. Again, the phases of construction just don't make any sense. Working on the bottom, middle, and top, and putting 4-story tech up. This cherry on top would probably be the most interesting picture to see at this point, along with the foundation. And what do I mean by the foundation? But before you even begin to build a building, you have to move tons of dirt out of here. Sometimes this initial stage can take a quarter of the entire construction duration. And when we consider that there are basements in these buildings that go down many stories, I'm simply not impressed with these suspicious photographs. And when considering the construction of a building in a city, it's also fair to have a look at everything else around it. And everything else looks so old. And again, this construction that we see being very, very suspicious. And you can see why they would have to vanilla the skies out. If you're gonna mess with one part of a building, then you have to mess with the sky around it, which means you have to mess with the whole sky in the whole city and just white it out. And there's no excuse. The resolution in these photographs is excellent. There's no reason we shouldn't get a normal looking sky versus something that resembles a stormy day or smoky. And here's an example of a picture. The Metropolitan Life Insurance Company building under construction, 1908. And what do we have here? Exactly what I was just talking about. Here they have performed their own little Photoshop for whatever reason. They've decided to not continue their sky into this portion of the photograph. Why have they done this? I'm not sure. Perhaps tipping us off, or perhaps somebody was sloppy. Very fascinating tech on the top here. Really intricate. And what is this? Ether? This is pretty fascinating. Let me know what you think. But I think proving my point on what kind of tricks they have up their sleeve. Here, this construction part looks so primitive compared to this. This is already complete and old. Again, missing windows, and we're to believe this is a construction photo in a well-established looking city, weathered, seasoned, full-grown trees. I don't think so. And it looks like that's it for the Singer building. That is all we get for construction photos. Personally, I'm not convinced. And here, while reading some of Wooden Nickel's comments, somebody replied, they are a 30-year general contractor, third-generation Finnish carpenter, and they're not buying it. How did the builders attach the domed, coffered interior ceilings to the steel ribbing? I'm calling doctored on those construction pictures. I have worked on some notable high-dollar projects in Southern California and elsewhere and would be happy to elaborate as an expert witness. There are many elements missing from the construction photos of Penn Station. And let's have a look at these pictures of Penn Station. A very interesting photo right off the get-go. Very strange that you would have dirt, floors, and all this steel in place. And something I have never seen a photograph of, if you have, please share it with me, is a cement truck of the old world. Or somebody mixing cement or hauling it in a cart. I don't know. I did see some guys in a photo I once shared mixing cement in a wheelbarrow. But something like this, can you imagine how many trucks of concrete it would require? And here you go. So what are we seeing here? Even if such a photo was found and taken in times of old, this still doesn't make any sense. And here we go. Exactly what I was asking for, to some extent. Here are the supposed builders of this glory. Why are you building a building like this? Are you kidding me? Look at this thing. This looks like some medieval antique. And this one over here looks a little more modern. Not too dissimilar from my own. But again, we seem to have jumped over a big step here. All of this steel that we are looking at in the last picture needs to be set in concrete. Every single beam here. And here again, this is a construction photo. And look at this. To be honest, everything is done. There's no construction taking place here. Look at their primitive wooden water barrels. And then this brick floor. Unbelievable. And here is a man working on this floor, it seems. And something just looking strange about this. This looks like a half floor, as if half of the level had been mud flooded and was filled with dirt, like we saw in that last picture, and they could be creating a new floor in this old building, because this just seems pretty strange to me, like a half floor, like in the movie Being John Malkovich. And really, all these construction photos just looking complete, if you ask me. Similar to the last ones we saw, just adding some props to the top. And if you don't see the photoshopping in this particular image, then I'm afraid there's no hope for you. Nothing could be more clear, unless we're to believe that these cranes were emitting some sort of smoke or dark aura. Unbelievable. Is anybody impressed with these construction photos? This old looking building. And this would be interesting to touch this up, adjusting the contrast, and we'd really see this photoshopping pop. Pretty obvious to me. And here we go again. We see what I'm talking about now. The half floor that we were looking at from the inside, and this is the outside. So here was that half rectangular window, and here's this half floor. And again, we're to believe that they're constructing this floor with these half windows. It just looks buried, even to a non-mud flood researcher. And has this picture been worked? And again, repeated examples of building from the top down. Does this make any sense to anybody? And again, are we really building? Is anyone doing anything here? And I'm just not seeing any construction here. Now this could be the making of facade, and I do believe that there was a lot of refacading of brick, and this photograph may be legit. However, the stuff that they were standing next to was not as impressive as much of the work that we see on the buildings themselves. And here again, what looks like an old weathered building. You can see the staining and the weathering on this what should be white stone or concrete facing. And this just does not look like the same photo to me. Again, the suspicious top. And this is a good time to bring up another point, is while they demolish these buildings, they often take them apart and reuse the parts and pieces. And this building was torn down, and I don't believe in the narrative, ultimately. And I think that while they take some of these buildings apart, they may snap some photos as evidence for their construction. Just a thought. Today I'm really laying it all out there. And here's a great example. How old is this building? Does this look new to anybody? And I think we can always get a good example of the new and the old. Here, this lamppost, old. Here, this stupid little wheeling cart, new. How about this stupid little wooden shed here? Like a little old world single wide, new. And how about this building? Old. Do you see my point? And then something like this, thrown on top of a white cartoon sky. Who is believing this to be a construction photo? In my opinion, only a fool. And finally, I think we'll just conclude with some pictures of construction. Very famous ones that many have seen before. And again, I ask the question, could these have been photoshopped? These people seem a little too comfortable, and these pictures a little too fishy. And personally, as a child, when I first saw these pictures, they really made me sick. Maybe imagining that people could be so reckless, and a photo or movie really allows us to put ourselves in these people's position, sometimes feeling what they might feel. But in these photos, just seeming stupid. Either they're some daredevil stunt performers, or these pictures are simply fake. And what did I find was this. Are we seeing a group of school children being just as reckless? No. We are seeing these Birmingham kids recreate a famous photo, and of course, an absolute Photoshop job, both then and now. So I thank you for joining me, and do have a blessed day, and I'll see you next Sunday. What are they hiding from us? What is the old world? Where did we come from? Who built all this? A world's fair? Is it really conceivable? Why spend all this money to tear these structures down? Who built all this? Where do we come from? A repurposed, inherited world. We are not the first, and we will not be the last. This is like some sort of game. Cities under our feet. The controllers know what's going on. The finest structures in the realm. All built with horse and buggy. This place gets reset, and they rewrite the rules and the history. The finest structure, and people go on oblivious to the past. What is this place? A world's fair? The finest structure. Do you need 100 acres of land to amuse yourself? Mud floods, orphans, false narrative. Who are these people? Who created them? Repurposed into indoctrination camps. Are we a genetically engineered race? Unaware of our true history. How many races have come before us? Why are they hiding all this? Can we survive the next reset? The great plasma storm. Inherited, repurposed technology. Finest structure. Are we really free? Who controls us? A new world order. Where do they live? Lands beyond. Is there more land? Unknown to us. Mount Meru and Antarctica. Are we in a prison? A cage? And who is the warden or keeper? Kept oblivious of the true nature of our reality. Everything demolished, buried, burnt, erased, wiped out, melted, cooked environment, completely reset, plasma discharges, the mud flood, 1850, 50 years to clean things up, the emergence of man, the reset, welcome to the realm.